Welcome to another episode of AM Excellence. We are on AM Excellence 79. It's suspended here on Saturday morning, 6:31. I apologize for the minute. I apologize for being a minute late. Dred and I were just recording another episode of A Fighter's Mindset, the Spaniard podcast. And I apologize for whatever reason. We've started these live streams are now full screen. So I have to get that. I know some people, it's a pet peeve whenever you record a video with the phone straight up. So I will work on that, and I will figure out how to make it a horizontal video to make the viewership a little bit better. So I started a new book today. Yesterday we wrapped up The Energy Bus with John Gordon, and I hopped into a new book today. And this book has been on my list for quite a while. I make a list whenever I hear of a different book from an interview or a podcast or maybe another book references it. I make a list of these books, and I have in Evernote a list of books to read. And this book has been on my list. It was referred to me by someone who follows my stuff on Facebook, and I thought, well, you know what? Boom, it's on my list. This person referenced it. I'm going to go ahead and jump into it. And the book is called Daring Greatly by, and I believe, I don't want to mispronounce this, Brene Brown, B-R-E-N-E with an accent, Brene Brown. And the book is called Daring Greatly, and I can already tell that I'm going to love this book, and the next however many videos are going to be very beneficial, very helpful, and I'm pumped for this one. Let's just put it that way. Now, the book started with a poem. The book started with a poem. It's a poem that I have referenced in the past, and it's a poem. It's actually a speech, comes from a speech, but it is something that I've referenced in the past, and I will continue to reference in the future because it is so stinking powerful that it's just like a movie or a song that you listen to over and over and over again, and it becomes part of you that never gets old. So shut your eyes, just listen to The Man in the Arena by Theodore Roosevelt. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without terror, without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. Daring Greatly. The title of this book, in part, was inspired by that poem, The Man in the Arena, while daring greatly. And you know, when I was reading that poem, I kept thinking of my wife, who we have a 2-month-old son, we have an 8-week-old son, and I kept thinking of my wife. So if you're sitting there in your bed, living room, wherever you're at right now, and you're thinking, yeah, but I don't want to be the man in the arena. I don't want to be a UFC fighter. I don't want to be a speaker. I don't want to be a this or that. It's not about that at all. I'm thinking the doer of deeds, what my wife does for my son, for my family. I'm thinking who comes short again and again, who tries to put him down successfully, who changes his diaper only having to change his diaper one more time and 2 minutes later. I'm looking at things like the man who is actually in the arena, who's the woman who is actually in the arena. Look, it's her. It's her. I'm a father. I'm an active fighter. I'm an active father. That's a Freudian slip there. But it's her. It is my wife. My wife is the lifeline to this human being. She is in the arena. Another thing, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood. Maybe you'll never get sweat and blood and dust on your face. But when I walk down in the morning and I look at her, either full of energy because Rocky had a good night's sleep, or totally marred by dust and sweat and blood. Not actually, but figuratively, where she is totally exhausted from the night because he didn't sleep. She is in the stinking arena. You can be in the arena. I can be in the arena, whether it's a real arena or it's the arena of your everyday. Now the book talks about, she opens up talking about this thing called vulnerability. Now what does it mean to be vulnerable? This is a fun experiment. So I would ask you this, and you can offer, I would love for you all to offer feedback on this question. Comment below. When were you your most vulnerable? When were you your most vulnerable? Is it embarrassing? Probably. Do you want to write it in the comments below? Maybe, maybe not. But the book talks about this idea of vulnerability. My most vulnerable was when I got knocked out cold by Danny Castillo at UFC 1, I don't remember what it was, UFC down in Baltimore. That was my most vulnerable. When I was out cold on the mat in front of the world, pictures were taken, videos were taken, that was my most vulnerable. So she says, vulnerability is not knowing victory or defeat. It's understanding the necessity of both. It's engaging. It's being all in. Look, I was all in that moment. I didn't know if I was going to win. I didn't know if I was going to lose. All I knew then, and I know now, is I was all in. That's being vulnerable. That win or lose, you're in it. Our willingness, and this is super powerful, our willingness to own and engage with our vulnerability determines the depth of our courage and the clarity of our purpose. The level to which we protect ourselves from being vulnerable is a measure of our fear and disconnection. The level to which we protect ourselves from being vulnerable is a measure of our fear and disconnection. Think of that in terms of relationships. You see a person, maybe you are a person who pushes people away. Whether it's an actual love relationship or whether it's a friendship, you push people away because it's a form of protection, because you don't want to expose yourself to being vulnerable. I believe, this book believes, that the point of humanity is human relationships. It's the depth of relationships. It's helping other people, and it's people helping you. It's creating a ripple of good. And if you're putting up that wall, you're eliminating, in my opinion, the most essential need, the most essential point of being a human, and that is connecting with other people. She goes on to say, perfect and seductive, not perfect, perfect and bulletproof are seductive, but they don't exist in the human experience. So why might you be vulnerable? Why might you put up this shield? Well, because you don't want to expose the fact that, hey, I'm not perfect. When I do these videos, sometimes I stumble. Sometimes I probably look not very good. Sometimes I might lose my place. But that's real. That's reality. That if you took this video, this 15-minute video is a microcosm of my life. Some of it's really good and powerful. Some of it's not really good and powerful. That's reality. She says perfect and bulletproof are seductive, but they don't exist in the human experience. One of my favorite quotes. I love quotes because they're so powerful and they inspire me in my own life. But Vince Lombardi says, perfection is unattainable. But if we chase perfection, we just might catch excellence. Perfection is unattainable, but if we chase perfection, we just might catch excellence. Perfect and bulletproof are seductive, but they don't exist in the human experience. Boom. If that's not a great point, and if that's not a great quote. So, Brené Brown is a doctor. She's a PhD. And she says, the surest thing I took away from my PhD in social work is this. Connection, and this reiterates what I said a minute ago. Connection is why we are here. We are hardwired to connect with others. It's what gives purpose and meaning to our lives. And without it, there is suffering. So we are here. We are meant to interact. We are meant to connect. Back at the beginning of humanity, we lived in tribes. Those tribes formed communities. Those communities connected. What we're building right here with AM Excellence and with the Fighter's Mindset, the Spaniard podcast, is a community. It's a community of people who say, you know what? I'm going to fight for what I want. I'm going to clarify what I want. I understand that in the process, I might fall flat on my face and figuratively or actually get knocked out on live TV, but I'm okay with it because this thing is what I want in my life, and I understand that perfection is unattainable, and I'm okay with that. but I am going to fight with every ounce of my being to achieve, to reach for the things that I want most in my life for me and for other people. So she goes on to talk about this idea of wholehearted living, being wholehearted. And look at the word wholehearted, wholehearted. Break it down. She says, wholehearted living is about engaging in our lives from a place of worthiness. It means cultivating the courage, compassion, and connection to wake up in the morning, Saturday morning, 6:30 a.m., to wake up in the morning and think, no matter what gets done and how much is left undone, I'm enough. Now, I don't want to talk to you about rah-rah vulnerability. You're okay. I'm good enough. I'm smart enough. And gosh darn it, people like me. Who's that from? Come on, let's see in the comments below. That's not what I want to say. But what I do want to say is a fighter's mindset is about setting and pursuing goals, being very real about that process, about that journey. My unlikely journey from classroom to cage. There's going to be ups and there's going to be downs, and it's all right. Because at the end of the stinking day, I'm Spaniard. One way or another, I'm Spaniard, and I'm okay with that. And I encourage you to take on that feeling, to take on that sentiment. I don't know if you can hear my daughter in the background, but she has woken up at 6:42 on a Saturday morning, and my wife is tending to her. Again, my wife is the woman in the arena. She is the one who stayed up through the night with Rocky and is tending to Gracie right now. I'm that close to deciding that I should go down, and should it continue, I might have to shut the video off. But for now, I listened to an interview on a podcast, it's probably a year or two ago, and I almost feel like it was this author, without even knowing it. I feel like it was this author. And in the interview, this person, possibly Brene Brown, was saying that that vulnerability is the biggest opportunity for courage. Vulnerability is the biggest opportunity for each one of us in our lives to be courageous. Think about that. They're opposites. Vulnerable and courageous, they're essentially opposites. So how in the world could being at your most vulnerable state be an opportunity for your most courageous act? And it's just like this. Something terrible happens to you. I got knocked out. I referenced that, but that was it, man. That was it. That was my most vulnerable state in my life. That happens to you. You have an opportunity to be the most courageous, because when you're the man in the arena and you stumble, you have a choice to fight or flight. You have a choice to get back up or stay back down. And that choice is courage. So the lower you are, the further you have to climb. Now, she goes on to talk about some of her speaking, and it all gets to the core. She says, I was going to create different programs for different things, for schools, for corporate, for this and that. And she said, but at the end of the day, she said, she says, after discussions with my publisher about the possibility of a business book, a parenting book, a book for teachers, etc., she realized the core issues were the same: fear, disengagement, and yearning for more courage. Fear, disengagement, and yearning for more courage. How do they apply to you? Fear, disengagement, and yearning for more courage. Are they present in your life? And if they are present, how are you overcoming them? How are you getting through them? And she goes on to say, in this chapter, it's not right here, but she goes on to say, you're undergoing those things: fear, disengagement, yearning for more courage. It doesn't just change. You've got to take action today in your life to cure those things, to cure those diseases. Let's call them diseases. How do you do that? The same things I always say. You surround yourself with the best. You read, you listen to podcasts, you exercise, you eat right. You take care of all the variables that can lead to getting rid of that disengagement, getting rid of that fear, and getting rid of that lack of courage. She says, to wrap up this chapter, she says, the core of this book is this: what we know matters, but what we are matters more. Being, rather than knowing, requires showing up and letting ourselves be seen. It requires us to dare greatly, to be vulnerable. The first step of that journey is understanding where we are, what we're up against, and where we need to go. My goal, my mission is to take you from here to there. You've got to understand where you are and where you want to go, and keep tuning in to AM Excellence. Keep tuning in to A Fighter's Mindset, and let's get you from here to there. I want to thank you all for tuning in. There were a lot of comments and feedback that I'm going to dive into here in a little bit. 6:46, have yourselves a great Saturday morning, afternoon. I will encourage you all. We're building this community little by little, and it's only going to continue with your help. Tag someone who should hear this message, or share it with someone with your page for whom you think it would benefit. I want to thank you all for your continued support. I will see you tomorrow morning. Stay tuned to my Facebook page to see exactly what time it is, because as Sunday is my wild card day, I will be on tomorrow sometime in the morning. Have yourselves a great Saturday. Carpe diem. Fight well.